Jason Bermas on today's News Talk, TNT.
And out of the chronicles of truth is truly stranger than fiction, it's not just a saying, is the good people at the LUCIS Trust today have brought us World Invocation Day. What does that mean? Who are the LUCIS Trust? What is this wackiness we're about to talk about? Well, to break it all down is Courtney Turner of the Courtney Turner Podcast. Thank you so much because, again, this feels like something out of maybe a Scooby-Doo thing I watched when I was a kid, or maybe later on it's a Tales from the Crypt story, or maybe it's like a B plot in some kind of Hollywood movie where you don't quite understand what's going on. What is the LUCIS Trust, and why was it referred to as the quote-unquote Lucifer Trust in its inception?
So LUCIS Trust did start out as Lucifer Publishing. It is the brainchild of Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey is the disciple of Madame Blavatsky, and many may know of Madame Blavatsky, who was one of the founders of the Theosophical Society in 1875. There were actually, I think, 19 founders, but she's one of the most well-known and definitely credited with popularizing the New Age movement. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about with LUCIS Trust. But her disciple, Alice Bailey, and it's really interesting. All three of these women who were in the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and Annie Besant, were actually Masons. And typically Masons only for men, and usually the women are members of the Order of the Eastern Star. But these three women were known as co-Freemasons. And Alice Bailey later married Foster Bailey, who was also a Mason. And when she was a little girl, I believe she was an Orthodox Christian. I don't know what variation, but she was an Orthodox Christian. And she was in church, and this ascended master came to her and told her that she could accomplish so much in life if she wasn't, held back by this very rigid religion and culture. And so he told her, and his name was Dwal Kul. He helped her write 24 works. One of them was the externalization of the hierarchy. And you can go to LUCIS Trust website and you will actually see they have excerpts from externalization of the hierarchy where they outline right from her book the 9-step plan for the New World Order. And Dwal Kul told her that her mission would be to execute the mission of the Masons, which was to create a one world religion. And it certainly looks that way with the LUCIS Trust. They started Lucifer Publishing in 1922. I guess it was a little too on the nose. People weren't too happy with that name. So they changed it to LUCIS Trust. But they make it very clear that it is about the light bearer, the light of the illuminated one, otherwise known as Lucifer. And so there is when you go to this LUCIS Trust website, which is a consultancy of the UN, they make that very clear. There's all these little offshoots, so you can spend way more time than other people probably care to. You can probably just watch my breakdown of all of this if you prefer. But they have all these other links to other websites like the Aquarian Age Community. This is an offshoot link of the UN. So this is not crazy, kooky conspiracy theory. This is actually on the UN site. So people might be familiar with the Aquarian Conspiracy book. This was intended to popularize the ideas of changing images of man, which is the Stanford Research Institute document done by Oakley and Willis Harman. And Marilyn Ferguson was actually the name of Harman's assistant. So when they talk about World Invocation Day, they say that this is to let the plan of light, love, and purpose work out through humanity. And when they say the plan, they say this on the site, that they are talking about the plan of the new Aquarian age. So when they say the new age, that's what they mean. They mean the new Aquarian age. And it all sounds really nice, but it's very deceptive, in my opinion, because they keep talking about how the Christ is going to come. They do not mean the Christ as in Jesus Christ. So for those people who may be Christian and thinking this sounds like a really great thing. This is diametrically opposed to the religion of Christianity. And people like Madame Blavatsky say that. They say that all religions are included in the perennial religion of Theosophy. However, it's diametrically opposed to Christianity. And that's probably because she worships Satan, Lucifer. They believe, so Theosophy, of course, means divine wisdom, and they believe through the theurgy that they can, which is the divine work, that they can become gods. And they believe that the God, the typical biblical God, is actually a malevolent God because he trapped humanity by withholding knowledge from them. And that it's Lucifer who enlightens them with the esoteric knowledge. And he brings that wisdom. And through that wisdom, they can become God. And this is also tied to, like the Gaia religion. People like Robert Mueller, who created the World Core Curriculum, were very inspired by Alice Bailey, and he talks about planetary politics. And this is the Gaia religion in a nutshell, essentially. They believe that Mother Earth is God and that we can become one with Mother Earth. To differentiate, it's not that, there's a God who created Earth. It is Earth is God, and we can become one with God. So it's all about invoking the Christ, the Master Christ, which to me sounds a little like the Antichrist. They don't think of Christ as being Jesus Christ. He is a world teacher, an ascended master, very similar to Buddha, Krishna, Lord Maitreya, which is really what they reference, that they're trying to usher in Lord Maitreya. So the first time that there's a prayer that they do, and the first time they did this prayer, that this prayer was brought to humanity, I should say, was the Master Christ brought this prayer in 1945 because it was the one time that he could come and make this big decision to reveal this prayer because people were very devastated by the war. And this goes back to like people like Barbara Marx Hubbard, who, the evolutionary leader, who talks about crisis is our birth. And so, of course, the war was a crisis, but this is an opportunity for the birth and for this great prayer to be heard by humanity. And 1952 was when there was the full moon in Gemini. And this is the first time today where the full moon is in Gemini since 1952. So this is a very special World Invocation Day for them.
And this is happening globally. This is in London, New York, and Geneva. And just to kind of play on the bearer of light, the Lucifer situation, again, obviously Lucis Trust, this is a huge part of that. For those that are not familiar, the traditional Lucifer of the Christian Bible is a fallen angel and a being of light. When you were talking about sharing knowledge, people point obviously to the Adam and Eve story and the tree of knowledge, and Lucifer, if you will, pushing them to eat that knowledge that was forbidden by the bad God. That's how they see this. But no matter where you turn in Theosophy and these mystery schools that surround it, you have tones and hints of, you mentioned Gaia religion, aka paganism in many different respects, the worship of Earth, and then hidden occultic knowledge. In other words, things embedded in symbolism throughout. And this literally hits every nail on the head on their website for the Great Invocation. They have their symbolism with the triangle right there. They talk openly about arcane schools. This is schools of occultism, etc., and world goodwill. Like you said, this is very much incorporated with the United Nations and other globalist institutions, just like they had that prayer, I believe it was now a little over a year ago, at Mount Sinai for Mother Earth. In fact, the World Health Organization, their new theme and their new visual representation is one of an ambiguous Mother Earth and health for peace, peace for health. And it's not just your health and your heartbeat, but it's got the recycling symbols on it. It's all encompassed. And this is something that we're seeing again and again and again. And like you said, listen, you don't have to believe it, folks. I know how kooky all of this sounds. Sounds total kook sauce to me. But this did take place today. This is an
Yeah.
institution that's been around for a very long time. It does exert more power than you would possibly imagine, or more people even know about. And guess what? Today was one of their big occultic holidays, which they celebrated.
Yeah, that is right. And when you mentioned Arcane School, the World Goodwill, these are all brainchilds of Alice Bailey. And Arcane School is just what you pointed out. It is reviving the mystery school. And when you go to learn about Arcane School, they talk about how they are reviving the mysteries. And the World Goodwill is all about teaching, like spiritual teaching and meditation. And the World Goodwill has Festival Week, where the world servers learn how to be good world servers, basically global citizens. And the triangles is the significance of the triangle is the strongest geometric shape. And the point is the Godhead. And for World Invocation Day, they want you to make triangles and connect all over the world. So you should find 2 other friends who will do this prayer with you. And they believe that this is going to invoke the energies of the spiritual masters and invoke the Christ, which again is not Jesus Christ, but yes, Lord Maitreya.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am meeting a couple buddies out for beers a little later on. I will try to get into a 3-way. We'll try to get our glasses together. I'll obviously have to do a little dicka-dicka-do on the phone, but I think that sounds like a fun little Thursday night. Why not? All kidding aside, and again, because we're in the dark cartoon, everybody, there's also large-scale politicians that have used this symbolism in the past, very outwardly in their benevolent, philanthropic organizations. And one that comes to mind in particular is George H.W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, and his 1,000 Points of Light Foundation. And literally in one of his fun little New World Order speeches, everybody, because it was a tour. I know there's like 1 or 2 out there they play over and over again. I got like a 5-minute running clip sauce in Invisible Empire. He literally he's invoking the New World Order, goes, the illumination of 1,000 points of light. And you're just like, what is this guy doing? You cannot make this stuff up. That was the president of the United States. He also happened to be 2nd generation Skull and Bones at that point. His son, who would become president, would be Skull and Bones as well. He would run against another Skull and Bonesman, John Kerry, in a questionable election where John Kerry might have won, but he didn't challenge anything. And John Kerry, coincidentally, is very involved in the United Nations and globalism in particular. And I mean, to anybody paying attention, ran way more of our actual foreign policy than Joe Biden did in the last 4 years. So we've got this going on today. What's next for the LUCIS Trust? What are some of the things they're now trying to push us into now that they've got their little prayer party done for the day? I mean, the moon's out. Let's hope there's no missing children. I kid. But what's next for the LUCIS Trust after the fact?
So I'm not sure what their next plans are. This is after a series of festivals. So they had their moon in their Easter, which was the moon in Aries, and then they had the Wesak, which was in April, and that was their moon in Taurus, where they're invoking the Buddha, that that ascended master of Buddha. And then now this is the full moon in Gemini, so they're invoking Christ. And I don't know, but I know the UN's got their Summit of the Future coming up. That's in September, where they're working on their global digital compact. And the WHO is going to be very busy. So right before the WHO, actually, I can't remember what that festival is called, actually, and I think that is in Geneva, and it's a LUCIS Trust festival. I'll have to look up the name of that. But yeah, that just because that's actually going on next week, and I'm going to Geneva. I'm flying out Wednesday to be a part of this Inspire Global Leadership Summit to figure out how we can strategize to exit the WHO. So I'm doing that, and yeah, but that
And
right.
again, these things are geopolitically relevant because I'm telling you, these people are taking part in that. You know, you just mentioned the Buddha, for instance.
Right.
What we know is going to happen this summer is the Bohemian Grove, more than
Yep.
likely the last 2 weeks of July. But again, there's been like no even alternative media press coverage the last several years, so it's hard to find out those dates at this point. Before the owl became their mascot, and before, you know, the cremation of care was done there, it was actually done in front of a Buddha statue. It was George Bromley that took that ritual, like you said, of one of those ascended masters and brought in their own as the owl, you know, this predatory, wise symbol of this club.
Yeah.
We got about a minute and a half left in the segment. We got a whole nother hour for you. Don't tune away. What would you like to leave the audience with? How can they support you, and especially this trip to Geneva?
So the festival is the Arcane School Festival. That's the 18th and 19th of May in Geneva. Yep. Right before this WHO pandemic agreement, they're calling it now, because that way they don't have to ratify it. So you can go to CourtneyTurner.com. It's again like Courtenay. So CourtneyTurner.com. And the first on the support page, the first thing I have is an ad for the Give, Send, Go, because this is an incredibly expensive trip. Just the flight alone is astronomical. So any support is really greatly appreciated. And I hope that we can come up with something where we create parallel systems. The first day is the summit, and the second day is going to be the rally where we protest their agreements and all of their erosion of sovereignty.
Well, keep it up. We're going to keep following you. Good luck out there, and thank you so much. I know this was the weird part of the broadcast, everybody, but as weird as it is, it was 100% legit.